Now let's go through another AI integrated workflow. This is one that Steve uses regularly.
Yep.
So if you recall, I have two AI agents in this workflow because we have two tasks that are being done. So if you remember I'm going to fill out a website form and I'm going to capture this lead and I'm going to put it in my CRM. We have a back half of that. Oh, we have a question.
The big issue we see are vendors who are hacked and the threat actor sends a real invoice for the real account, but asking for a different ACH.
So that's a really good point. So maybe that's where the human in the loop exception gets triggered, Tom. That's where if it's not the ACH that's in the system already, we will never write a new ACH. Maybe that's that criticality that I was talking about.
Oh.
That super critical piece that has a big impact on business is where humans still need to have a piece of the puzzle, right? So maybe the answer is we see that it's new, and then so John voice confirms all ACH changes. It's a good example. So in this example, what we have here is an API call to our Glass Hive that Steve puts together a list of contacts of people that have expressed interest in some form or fashion in AI with us. We need to take the array of users and move it to JSON, parse out the domain. This is kind of what I was talking about, right? So I'm going to go get the @ symbol out of their user email, and I'm going to add an element called domain, make sure they have a title. Then I'm going to feed that to an assistant. So an assistant on the back end is essentially, I don't know, I'll just go logging because I think this is important for everybody to see. So if I go to, and you guys might already know what this is, but. So when you log into OpenAI, you can go to ChatGPT or the API platform, right? So inside of OpenAI, you can have different projects, okay? These projects have different things like assistants that you can create. Now, those are actually, I got an email today, funny enough, that assistants are being deprecated in a year, which I found hilarious. Same functionality is going to be available. They're just calling them something different, so you got to migrate all your assistants. But if I go to my task project and I look at all my assistants, I have a bunch of assistants in here, okay? So I have an email summary assistant, a ticket review, that's what I was talking on, looking at the tickets, right? Web dev, email writer, and here's the one we're using, the AI use case, okay? So when you think custom bots, you think prompt engineering. So I'm sending it some data and I'm saying parse the domain to identify the company. Pull key facts from authoritative sources, the company site, LinkedIn, Crunchbase, capture industry, services, customer type, rough size, startup SMB, summarize in about 25 words. Then I'm taking their title and doing the same thing with it, okay? So if we go back to my RPA workflow, I'm sending title, domain, email, ID, first name, all in JSON, just tag data for that bot to process or that agent or assistant to process, okay? Oops. From there, I need to do some manipulation to get it back into JSON and order some things around that I want it to look like. Then I'm feeding that to another assistant to craft an email. And this isn't going out the door. This is where that human in the loop really comes in, because I don't trust AI and what we've crafted to do the work that we do to personalize it just yet, right? So what this actually does is it creates a bunch of drafts for Steve that he can then use as talking points or craft an email and have a discussion. And so we have AI use cases based on the title and the organization with pseudo-grounded data that Steve can use to drive conversations now, right?
Saving hours and hours of sales enablement.
Well, it's usually done by like a marketing or a junior sales research person.
BDR, SDR.
Yeah, so this is us just running lean, right? Down here, I had a switch statement that if they're a CIO, if they're a chief, if they're a manager, director, engineer, CISO title, but I decided to do away with all those because we're not going to send those directly, right? But I left it in there because it kind of looks neat. And then it creates all these drafts for Steve. Now, the fun part about this is, where does Steve execute it? And this is where some of the integrations come in handy. So earlier, I have used an RPA tool to call AI, right? I've used our Azure OpenAI in an RPA workflow to do work. Well, now I want to use Copilot and Microsoft Teams to call an AI RPA to other AI agents to bring back work to do some work for us, right? So just to show you that it's possible. I had a lot of fun demoing, building all these demos. So let's go to my RPA agent that I built. So it is ChatGPT. It is modeled for whatever, 4.1, and it is based out of Copilot Studio, and I'll show how to configure it. I can ask it all sorts of regular questions like, tell me about PowerShell. And it is all within my tenant, just doing work, right? It's crafted through Copilot Studio again, and it's just going to give me an answer about PowerShell as whatever it's programmed. Now, this is a non-engineered bot, so it's basically, if you just opened up ChatGPT, this is what you get. And the neat thing is I put a trigger in here that when I say AI use cases from Glass Hive, the trigger actually spawns an RPA workflow hosted in n8n, and it says, oh, hey, would you like, and I can take this out, but I have it in because it's way better to see in demo. Would you like me to execute the RPA workflow for generating AI use cases from Glass Hive? Please type yes to confirm. Well, sure, that sounds great. So now Copilot has triggered the n8n webhook to go do some work. And if we come out here, it is now running. So this takes a little bit of time because it's doing a lot of work, and it'll bring it to Steve's inbox and draft. So we'll kind of let that bake. It's the cooking show where you start the oven, you put it in, and come back later. So let's take a look at Copilot Studio, right? So I've got a couple of custom agents out here that I've built. We're not going to go through them all, but let's go through the RPA agent. So this is a GPT 4.0 model that I'm using. It's got, oh, it does have some instructions. So it's got a little bit of instructions here. So it enables the agent to monitor and use input for specific phrases. When a defined phrase is detected, initiate a webhook call for a specified endpoint. Allow configuration of the phrases and webhook endpoint. Respond to users confirming when a webhook has been triggered. Do not trigger webhooks or partial matches or unrelated input. Ensure all responses are clear and informative about the activity. Maintain secure process handling for the webhooks. I did not feed it any knowledge, but if we go to the tools, I created a custom tool using YAML. So I used a YAML layout, and it sends a payload to n8n calling the webhook. Right. So in this case, pretty easy, straightforward to configure. I have an input in here. Let's see here. Two. So on the description, yes, after it's responded from the trigger, it'll actually make the connection and go. And if you wanted to see, where is my topic? There it is. So the AI use cases in Glass Hive is the topic that I gave it to actually execute the webhook. So if we go into the topic, it looks very much like Power Automate or Flow or something like that. And so the agent chooses when somebody says use AI use cases in Glass Hive, and they respond with yes, it's going to actually go execute, send a payload to n8n to run the tool. So now if you start thinking about this from a user interface perspective, how easy can we make their jobs or their functions by leveraging either AI and custom agents with instructions that are prompt engineered, or we have the same agent potentially have multiple embedded webhooks to go call our RPA tool. That RPA tool could be Power Automate. And I think I mentioned this earlier. I wanted to do a very simple Power Automate call, and not ragging on Microsoft. I mean, I've been with them for 25 years now, doing a lot of things with them. But generally speaking, the same thing to build inside of the n8n RPA workflow in n8n, it took me 20, 30 minutes, and I think it was almost 5 hours of work to get the same exact thing to work in Power Automate. I was so frustrated by it. So not to say that you can't use it, because once you use it enough, I'm sure you can get used to it and get much more efficient at it. But generally speaking, centering on an RPA tool that has the integrations that your business needs. So if you're all Microsoft, I think a good answer is Power Automate. Just got to get somebody acclimated to how Power Automate works. If you're all over the board with integrations or you have other services and tools, I think a workflow like n8n is a great option, especially self-hosted n8n is a really good option for that. So on this topic trigger, once that's created, then you publish it to whatever channels you want. And so in here, you can publish it to a website, Teams and Copilot, SharePoint, a web app. You can integrate with some external things like Twilio for phone numbers or Line or GroupMe or Slack. So there are some native integrations with outside platforms inside of Copilot Studio that would be useful. All depends on your business requirements, needs, and how you design your AI and how people are going to interact with it. Okay, so while we let that kind of finish, because that's going to take a little while to finish, we'll look at the data once it's done. Oh, look at that. It's like a new.
The demo guys are smiling on you so far.
That's right. So again, one of the things I've learned, and this just makes life easy, this tool, moving everything in and out of JSON, arrays, objects, whatever, makes it super easy. And so in this case, it pulled from the list, gave me some metadata about the information, right? Has a body of a subject or a body of an email, subject, the AI use cases. And so Steve then uses this to personalize it and make sure that he fundamentally agrees with it before approaching somebody. And in this case, put out 15 items, right? So there's item 1, item 2, goes on and on. All right, so let's go into some other functional workflows that I'm finding use cases for. Let's go into our graph library. So we have a customer that has an engineer that does some daily checks, and they do some daily checks on Azure, Entra active users without authentication, does some daily checks with Defender for endpoint missing patches, does some checks for non-compliant devices in Intune. So these are all good use cases for us. So let's go to Defender for endpoint. So again, just an intelligent workflow that does some graph API work, array manipulation, and gets from the security graph API. So in this case, the API is going to be a little different. This one is going to be the securitycenter.microsoft.com. The API machines, we're going to use the same methodology of the bearer token to authenticate to get there. But the real kind of benefit of this is now you're getting a security profile. Now, there's a lot of tools that bring that into your purview or in your space. You might have a SIEM, you might have some other things. One of the things that we're going to do with this is we're going to open up tickets because our managed services customer. So we're going to open up tickets if the patches have been out for X amount of days and machines are still missing those patches. We're going to open up tickets for my team to triage and to figure out what's going on. Now, can we take it a step further and then pull logs from Defender and auto triage it? Yes, but one of the things I've learned in developing these either AI integrated or RPA workflows is that really, if you're trying, just like anything else, right? If you're trying to boil the ocean and do all the tasks at once, it becomes very muddy and it becomes very difficult to get clarity on where you're at in the task. I really do enjoy building and think it's the right path to build a single item workflow and build and expand on it as you go. So they're iterations, right? They're never quite done. Unless it's a very specific business objective. But in this case, we're going to get missing vulnerabilities, and then we're going to format the list, put it into an HTML, and send me an email. So let's see what that looks like. So here's a missing vulnerability list that I have in this environment, this demo environment. So missing a bunch of stuff for Linux, it looks like. Here's the catalog URL, click that. Takes me out to Microsoft or Ubuntu, wherever it's all at. Gives me information on the actual vulnerability that's missing. This is all from Defender in this case. And this package does, or this workflow does another thing that I was starting to work on. And I think it's far enough along, I'll show the email. Yeah. What about computers that are inactive in Defender, right? Maybe there's some cleanup that needs to happen. Now, the end result of this workflow, I don't want to get an email on it. I don't care. I want it to go clean up the actual machine. So I would have it auto groom and go do some maintenance on the actual Defender clients itself, right? So when we start thinking, well, we talked a lot about business use cases for sales, for marketing, those kinds of things. I'm putting the IT operations hat on to say, what kind of things can we do that just makes our life easier in a more automated fashion that's repeatable, right? It's lower risk, so I don't know that there needs to be a lot of humans in the loop for cleaning up Defender, as long as the checks and balances are there for all the workflows that you're going to execute and run on.